Following each Apollo mission, NASA released hundreds of photos, many of which had been captured as continuous sequences of the lunar landscape for use in the creation of panoramas. But as we shall see, not only is this panorama physically impossible, it reveals a dark secret. The panorama appears in the Apollo 14 Preliminary Science Report, and the Apollo 14 Photography Index claims the photos were taken from inside the lunar module soon after landing. Of the 14 photos on the magazine, these 10 are referenced as having been used in the panorama. Except it turns out to be not so much a panorama as a patchwork. Though it's not immediately obvious in the original, this photo has been cut to hide a large black object. But it's not until we reconstruct the same sequence of photos at half transparency that the full extent of NASA's creative artwork becomes clear. This photo, in which a lunar module shadow almost touches the horizon, is completely out of place. And the black object that had to be cut out from this photo is in fact the left side of a lunar module bulkhead. The bulkhead is even more obvious in this photo, which is obscured by this photo that overlaps it. And this photo, which includes the right side of a lunar module bulkhead, is all but hidden in the reconstruction, whereas almost half of it is visible in the original, because the photo that overlaps it has been cut to shape. Staying with NASA's original panorama, can you see how the ground appears to dip? It's an illusion. If you look closely at the features of the landscape, in this reconstruction you will see they are misaligned because NASA is hiding the true origin of the photos in an attempt to convince everyone that they were taken by astronauts from inside the Apollo 14 lunar module, which is also why the horizon in their panorama appears dead straight. You can tell from the location of the horizon in these 6 photos that they were taken looking down from a height, not out. And when correctly aligned, the landscape appears as it should, not grossly distorted. Now let's take a trip inside the lunar module to see from where each photo was taken. Before we start, it's important to bear in mind how restricted the view would have been through the lunar module's 2 triangular windows, which are inset 30 inches apart on either side of the bulkhead. We'll start by using this photo taken through the left-hand window as a guide to the location of the lunar module in relation to its shadow. And note that the artificial horizon in this CAD software is generated for the Earth, so it will appear higher than it would on the Moon. The smudges you can see in the photo are in fact scales scribed onto the glass, which we can use to get a better idea of the camera's field of view. Next we'll look at this photo, also taken through the left-hand window, that includes the thruster nozzle but not the scales. And this one that includes neither thruster nor scales. Then over to the right-hand side for the other 3 photos. By the way, the window on this side has no scale scribed onto it. So, looking from the top, we can see from where each photo was taken based on what was included in the camera's field of view, 3 looking through the left window and 3 through the right. Except that's impossible, because it's obvious from the way the ground overlaps that these 6 photos were taken somewhere along this arc. These 2 photos were taken at slightly different elevations from a very similar angle. So close in fact that the foreground doesn't need to be skewed much at all for the surface features to line up perfectly. Which is when you realise someone misjudged where the end of the nozzle would be because it's missing from the second photo. Remember this photo, the one we used as a guide to the location of the lunar module in relation to its shadow? Take a closer look and you'll see there are in fact two shadows. They become even more obvious when the photo is equalized. The same is true in this photo, and this one, and here as well, which of course is impossible when there should be only one source of light, which is the case in this photo taken from outside the lunar module, that has only one very dark shadow. If we take another look at the lunar module window, you can see it contains two parallel panes of glass, which might explain why there are two shadows. At least it would if everything else in these images appeared twice, because only the shadow cast by the lunar module is affected, which is consistent with something that is being reflected in two panes of glass. And the mystery only deepens when we look at photos taken through the right-hand window, which also has two panes of glass, because there's only ever one shadow. So what we have are double shadows when photos are taken through the left-hand window and a single shadow when taken through the right-hand window. The same is true of photos taken during the Apollo 12 mission. This one is through the left-hand window, as is this one, and this is through the right-hand window. Notice as well, in this photo the shadow is offset upwards, whereas in this one it's offset to one side, and here it is both up and to one side. So it seems the position of the shadows also depend on the camera angle, because they overlap perfectly in this photo. Given the unusual nature of the double shadow effect, it could be that NASA were using a beam splitter to combine images, the same technology used in Apollo mission simulators. The NASA beam splitters were complex machines, but this is basically how it works. Using a real photo of the lunar surface, a light box is used to project the shape of a lunar module onto a pane of glass set at an angle, so that a photo taken through the glass creates a shadow effect on the ground. But in order to include the scales in photos through the left-hand window, two panes of glass must be used, or even the lunar module window itself, with the drawback that now the shape of the lunar module is projected onto both panes of glass, creating the double shadow effect seen in some photos that changes position depending on the camera's angle. So NASA would have us believe that this photo, showing a single shadow that closely follows the contours of the lunar surface, was taken during the same Apollo 14 mission as this one captured through the left-hand window of the lunar module, where there are two overlapping shadows that look completely flat. Which begs the question, if NASA went to all the trouble to fake a lunar surface for shots like this, why did they need to fake shadows on actual photos of the lunar surface? Why not just take a photo through the window? The answer is, it's too high. The hard line you can see in this photo marks the limit of the stage on which this lunar lander is positioned. And it's only 150 feet from the edge. So from this height, you would be able to see where the stage ends and the fake horizon begins. But more about that in my next video. Thanks for watching, and please remember to like, subscribe and share.